Welcome everybody to another special part 2 episode of our NFL free agency preview of the Amateur Experts podcast. I'm your host, Landon Oliver, here with my co-host, Andrew Scott.
Yes, sir. Good to be back so soon. It's nice.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Who knows? We might start doing two a weeks instead of 2 a days. We'll just start pulling 2 a weeks.
If it
But
doesn't come before football season comes back around, you could pretty much bet that it'll end up happening once football season's back.
yeah, that is true. And of course, football season is not going on. But as we told you in the last episode, we have part 2 of our free agency special. This episode will focus on the NFC contracts that were handed out. We'll go team by team and kind of give you our favorite contracts, least favorite contracts. Andrew's kind of raring to talk about the Rams and everything that's happened with them. But you got anything before we just kind of go ahead and kick it off?
Now let's dive in.
Awesome, man. Well, we're going to go ahead and start NFC East or NFC least. I like to get the worst out of the way the quickest. And speaking of the worst, I'm going to start with the Dallas Cowboys because, they are what they
If
are.
a Cowboy fan ever listened to this podcast, they would hate your ass with how you take jabs every chance you get. But I don't think we have any, I don't think any of our 4 listeners are Cowboys fans. So,
well, some of it I do. Like my stepdad's a real big Cowboys fan, and so I just like teasing him about it. But I mean, it's also like it's very media driven. Like with me, like I'm so sick of every season. It's literally been like 25 years every year. It's just like, well, I think this is the year the Cowboys can compete for the Super Bowl, and then they fucking miss the playoffs. And then the very next offseason, it's almost the same team, if not a worse team. And you hear this like, well, I think this is the year they could probably win the Super. Like, man, like I know they bring in money, and like I know they're one of the most valuable franchises, like not even football, just sports in general. Like, there's tons of Cowboys fans everywhere. Like, I get it, but like for a league that always preaches on like, what have you done for me lately? Considering your lately has been like since like I was a little kid, and that shit is like 30 years ago. Like, come on, man. Like, how can I not take shots at that? Because they leave it open every year.
and here they are yet again.
Yeah.
They brought Dak Prescott back as their big signing. So this might be the year.
Yeah. I hear it every season. Get Skip Bayless on here.
So that's obviously the headliner, right? It's the fact that they brought back Dak, something that I feel like they had to do. Like we talked about that, we gave that time whenever we talked about it, whenever it happened. But that's obviously the big headliner for them. Keanu Neal, I don't think that's a bad contract to see what you got. I mean, they need help stopping the run, and he can do it from his level.
Yeah, I know they've actually listed
the
him
secondary
as a linebacker.
Still got, yeah, right, so. And it makes sense. That's what they need him for. Is that so? Even if he is listed as a safety, I think that he is more of a linebacker for what they need. But
right.
So I mean, the secondary still needs plenty of work. But like with Dak back, assuming the offensive line is back healthy, their offense is set to me. Like Zeke is still a solid running back. Tony Pollard is a great running back. I think Dak is a good quarterback. The offensive line, when healthy, is set. The receivers are some of the best in the league. Blake Jarwin, assuming he's still his normal self, he's serviceable at tight end. So you just look at the defensive side of the ball, and their biggest challenger, I think, for the NFC East title next year, where the Cowboys have plenty of holes on the defense, the other team really doesn't. So it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. So, but I mean, whenever Dak first signed his contract, and me and you did a podcast, not long after that news, I said that I would, on that day, I would pick the Cowboys to win the NFC East if you asked me to pick. But if you ask me today, now that we know after free agency, my answer is not the same anymore.
Shoot, I don't even know if they'll finish second, man. Like,
they would still be my pick for second.
I do think they're the second. Again. So
I do think they're the second best team in the NFC East when healthy. But I used to, for a very brief period there before free agency started, I thought they might be the first. But there's been another team who I think might be. Well, before we move on though, any thoughts on Dallas from your end?
Not really. I mean, they've just kind of like pieced together just more depth pieces more than anything. And obviously, like, well, I know like their defensive tackle retired today. I can't think of which one. I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now, but team captain. I know that he's been there for like 9 years as their starting defensive tackle, and he retired. Um, so that's I don't know. Cowboys fans might know a little bit more as far as like how big of a loss that's going to be, but yeah, I mean that defense still just looks really bad to me. Like they,
Yeah, I know the Mike Clay had, Mike Clay has his spreadsheet of like the position grades for each team for each position, and I'm pretty sure he had the defensive interior as the lowest position grade for Dallas.
yeah.
So
Well,
to your
then
point,
they're also basically came out and said like they're letting Alden Smith, walk as well, and so like they need pass rush, they need defensive interior, they need
yeah,
linebacker
yeah,
help,
the
they
defense in
need
general needs a lot of work.
yeah, like I don't see like I mean it's almost kind of like the Colts of old days where like the only way they're winning games is 44-40, and and like really like with all of these NFC East teams, like you can win the NFC East, but it's a terrible division, and whoever gets in the playoffs, outside of Washington, because some of the signings they made were really good, but um, I just I don't really care about any of the NFC East teams, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, most people are going to be picking them to lose. Somebody's going to make the playoffs, but then they're basically going to be unanimously picked to lose their first playoff game, I would guess. Depending, we've still got a lot of offseason and season to play out. But like,
Right.
if you ask somebody to pick who in the NFC would be most likely to lose their first playoff game, I would think it's probably an NFC East team that most people are going to be naming.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get in to now another team here in the NFC East. We'll start with the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, I think their big signing has been Joe Flacco. Now they did get Anthony
I was
Harris,
to say I
uh,
disagree because I
and,
definitely think it's Anthony Harris.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I really do like Anthony Harris. Um,
yeah,
but I think the rest of their team, I mean, that's just another team that it almost seems like they're kind of embracing a rebuild kind of a mode or a retooling kind of a mode. With trading Carson Wentz, getting rid of Doug Peterson, they're kind of ushering in a new era of Eagles football. And they've got some pieces. They could be moving on from Zach Ertz, obviously.
they should.
However that goes, whether it's a trade. I know they were asking for a third rounder, and I'm pretty sure everybody just hung up the phone on them. So,
Yeah, don't blame anybody
um,
for hanging up the phone
so I've
either.
got I've got a sneaky suspicion that Zach Ertz probably ends up in blue at some point um, after they release him, because that seems to be the route that they're going to end up having to go. Um, but outside
Yeah,
of that, I mean, it's not a terrible team. Obviously, they don't know what they have in Jalen Hurts,
yeah,
and that's another team. Like, say what you will about what happened with the Wentz situation, but they do place a premium on their backup quarterback position. So you can get a veteran guy like Flacco that can come in, very similar to a Nick Foles type of a guy. Not very mobile, but big arm, can run an offense. And I really do like Sirianni, the head coach there. I, you know, Former Colts offensive coordinator. I didn't think he would, be a head coach this soon, but I mean, I do like him, and some of the areas they attacked. So I think with them, it's just going to more be. Seems like all of these teams, like with the Cowboys and the Giants and Washington, is just going to be health. If they can get that offensive line healthier, some of those weapons healthier, obviously Miles Sanders healthy, some of the defensive pieces, I mean, they could be a sneaky good team possibly if Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback.
yeah. See, and I tend to lean on the side of where I think they have a decent shot of finishing last in the division. Um, but Daniel Jones does still play in this
Yeah,
division, so
yeah,
so yeah. I mean, this season to me really just is. It looks like this is about finding out if Jalen Hurts is the guy or not. Like either he is, and and then when you can start building around him, or he isn't, and you pick high in the draft again next year because, I mean, they do have good defensive pieces, but the offensive pieces, if Hurts isn't going to elevate the pieces on offense,
Yeah.
the
And
offense
let's
isn't going
not
to be
forget
good.
also, like, if Carson Wentz does end up hitting for Indianapolis, they get the Colts first rounder next year as well. So
Right.
they could
Yeah.
possibly end up having 2 first rounders next year
I
as
think they
well.
will end up having 2 first rounders
Yeah.
if I had to guess. Honestly, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
Wentz will end up playing to the point to where they get that, what is it, like 70-75%.
70% of the snaps and make the playoffs, or 75% of the snaps outright.
Yeah. And I mean, he's not, it's not like he's playing 60% or 100. Like he's either paying like close to 100 or it's going to be way
Yeah, I was
below
gonna say, I mean, he's
70%.
only played above 75% twice in his 5 years. So I
Right.
mean
Yeah.
that's
It comes down to him either like being healthy and playing well, or he doesn't play well and he gets benched, like, cause I mean, if the Colts can see clearly that Wentz just is like, if they decide, he's not fixable, I would imagine they would bench him to save their first round pick.
yeah, I mean, we'll see how it plays out, but with the way things are looking now, um, I tend to agree that it's more than likely going to be a first round pick.
Right.
So let's get on now to the Giants. And you want to talk about some big signings? One of the biggest of the offseason, your boy Kenny Galladay, fantasy football prison, going to New York. Man, speaking of fantasy football prison, like, I know we'll touch on this a little bit, but this has been an awful offseason for fantasy football players.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest we do a whole episode on like the fantasy football outlook for the off season, but the off season's been so terrible for fantasy
I
football. I
know.
don't even know if I want to do it. Like, let's just not even talk
Let's
about it.
forget it happened. Like, we'll move on.
But the New
But
York Giants got an incredible wide receiver, though, that they don't deserve. Daniel Jones does not deserve Kenny Galladay. A better quarterback deserves him, and he deserves a better quarterback. But he
hey,
chased a
he took
bag
the
in a
money,
year where it
man.
was,
Like, you,
and I don't blame him.
yeah.
He was the clear number one option in terms of his position. It was a tough year to be looking for that big contract. So he cashed in while he could. I don't blame him. He deserves the money. He's an incredible receiver. I hope that they realize Daniel Jones isn't the answer and he doesn't have to live through that for the entire length of his career or for
Like
the
Allen
length of his
Robinson.
contract. Yeah, I hope he doesn't get Allen Robinson. But yeah, I mean, 2 thumbs up for the Giants for signing him. I mean, he's, automatically a huge upgrade to their pass catching unit. And, I just wish it wasn't Daniel Jones throwing him the ball. But
Yeah,
I
and then
mean,
I mean they sent a few more guys too as well. John Ross is going to be there. Kyle Rudolph is going to be there. Obviously, some
I'll tell
injury
you
concerns.
real quick. I'll stop you there. I
Okay.
hate the Kyle Rudolph contract is one of my least favorite of any of this offseason. Why are you paying this man $14 million for 2 years whenever there were like Gerald Everett signed for less than that? There was I can't remember off the top of my head. There was another tight end that signed less for that. Like,
Yeah,
what do you, why?
yeah,
I don't know.
it's
So that, I mean, it's not a lot of money, but whenever I saw, even whenever I got the sleeper notification, I was like, what the
compared
fuck is
to other
this?
guys. Yeah,
So but Leonard Williams, I thought it was smart, locking him back up though, giving
yes,
him the franchise
definitely.
tag and then re-signing him. Leonard Williams is a stud. Good for
Um,
you guys for locking him up.
and the same thing. Another really bad contract, I think, which they actually just signed, was the Adoree Jackson deal. 3 year with a max value of 44.5 million.
Yeah,
Um,
it'll be interesting to see if
I
he
mean,
performs better with like the Giants defense was respectable last year, and the Titans, I think that would be way too kind of a word to use for the Titans. So he's going to be in a better situation with New York. So I think he had flashes, but it's definitely a lot
yeah,
to give a guy who
yeah,
has just
I'll
had
say it's a lot of money
flashes to this
for some
point.
flashes.
Yeah,
So we'll just kind of leave that with the Giants. And then we'll
save the
get
best for
to,
last for this
yeah, I
division.
was gonna say, and then like my favorite in the division, my boy Fitz Magic throwing bombs to Terry McLaurin, throwing bombs to Curtis Samuel,
What
dumping
a
it off
signing!
to
Mm.
Adam Humphries, who they actually just signed today, I believe. So it's I really like what they've done. The William Jackson signing at cornerback, I thought was a really good signing,
Hmm.
especially for that defense. Man, that defense is
It was
so
already an incredible defense, and then they
so
added
good.
like I mean, I think William Jackson's a top 10 corner for sure.
Yeah, if
Um,
I mean if not top 10, he's for sure a top 15 cornerback in the league, like for sure.
yeah,
So
and so I mean, adding him to a defense that was already one of the
yeah,
best in the
and
league last year.
he signed for less than Adoree Jackson did.
Yeah, so there you go.
So see, that's what I'm trying to say is like,
Yeah,
I mean, that's a terrible contract. When
yeah,
you
yeah.
got
Whenever
William
you look at
Jackson for
it,
less money or similar money, it's 3 years, 42 million, as opposed to 3 years, 44 million. But you're getting a substantially better player.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
definitely.
obviously, they franchise Sheriff, keeping that offensive line together. I know they would like to get another left tackle. Um, Dustin Hopkins, I think they re-signed their kicker, and he's a pretty
Yeah, they
good
did.
kicker.
Yeah.
But yeah, the big ones: William Jackson, Curtis Samuel, who I think is just going to blow the doors off that offense.
It would be interesting because wasn't Ron Rivera the first guy to
Yeah,
misuse him?
yeah.
You
Well,
know what I'm saying? Like we've been complaining about how he has a bit with, but maybe there's been some lessons learned, and now you've got Terry
there's that,
McLaurin on the
and
opposite side of him,
his best friend and like college roommate McLaurin is there
right?
too. So
Yeah,
you kind of have like an Odell Landry.
I love the
That,
signing.
that
I
plays
just I
that.
just hope he's used in the way that he should be used. But
Yeah, and
I love the fit with the team.
I'm curious to see what they do with a quarterback, because that's a team that could trade up and possibly get into that top
Yeah,
10 for a quarterback.
they're
And
on the
then
short list of teams I hope trade up and
yeah,
get it like an impact quarterback because this team could be a lot of fun.
yeah. But see, that's where I stand as well. Though is like I think even without, if they don't trade up and get that quarterback, and say they do more offensive line help, they kind of kick the can down the road and maybe go after their quarterback next year. I think this team is still super fun because we've seen what Ryan Fitzpatrick does.
Ryan Fitzpatrick is very fun
For fantasy football.
for fantasy football and
Yes.
for just fans that want to see big plays and things like that. In terms of improving Washington's playoff chances,
Yeah, I was gonna say
oh
he's not gonna win you a Super Bowl.
like Ryan Fitzpatrick is a lot of fun to love, but there's a reason why he's been in the league since like 1995, and I don't know if he's ever made the playoffs. Like he like everybody loves Ryan Fitzpatrick, me included, and he's fun to root for. He's fun to watch. He's
Former
great for
Ram.
fantasy football contact. Yeah, I think we were the first team.
Yeah,
Pretty sure we were the ones that
former Ram
drafted.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Um, so
I think the
it,
Colts are the only team he has not played for.
um, but yeah, I don't want to overreact. Like Fitzmagic is great, but I mean the reality is this team is good enough around him that they can make the playoffs, even if he just is Ryan Fitzpatrick, and we don't see a lot of Fitzmagic or whatever the case may be. I still like. I think they've had a good enough offseason to this point that the NFC East is definitely going to be. It's not a given for who's going to win it, But I do think Washington and Dallas are the two most interesting teams right now in this division, and I think it'll be a close race between the two.
Definitely. So we will move on now to the NFC North. Um, we'll start off. Yeah, we'll start off with the Chicago Bears and quarterback one, as they tweeted out yesterday. For those of you on Twitter, the graphic QB1, Andy Dalton.
Let's
I
paint
mean,
let's paint a picture. Let's paint a picture, right? It's the previous off season before this one. You're the Chicago Bears. You're looking at your quarterback situation. You say, you know what? We're going to trade for Nick Foles, and then we're going to give Nick Foles 3 years, 24 million to be our starting quarterback.
mm,
Meanwhile, Andy Dalton signed for whatever with Dallas. You could have signed Andy Dalton, save some money, don't have to trade nothing. You just got Andy Dalton now. You Nick
delayed it.
Foles, Nick Foles and Mr. Trubisky. And
Oh,
then now here we are, we turn around. That same Andy Dalton that you could have signed without trading, without giving Nick Foles a bunch of money. Now he's quarterback one, and you're posting that shit on social media, just like mocking your fans at this
I
point.
know,
Like
like
you're making
yeah,
fun of your fans. Like nobody likes this. Nobody likes this, and you put a graphic out and a tweet out. Like the Bears are continue to be one of the biggest losers in in the league, man, to have so much defensive talent and have Allen Robinson on your team and
Yeah,
just
that
have,
I was gonna say that's another crime they committed was franchise tagging Allen
yeah,
Robinson,
how
not just
dare you?
like yeah,
Let
just
that man
let
live.
him
What is
go.
wrong with you?
Because I mean, if you're
Like,
gonna keep him, at least which to their credit, they made a huge offer for Russell Wilson.
they did
Massive
try.
roster. They tried. So
Yeah.
let's not get on too bad just because they took a swing. They just in typical Bears fashion, they just whiffed. They struck out. Um, I don't man, I don't know of a single good Bears quarterback in the last 30 years.
Nah.
Not a single one. I mean, I think you got to go back all the way back to Jim McMahon before you find like a decent Bears quarterback. And I don't understand how, which I mean, obviously they get mocked because the Deshaun Watson thing and the Patrick Mahomes thing with Trubisky, but I've
Yeah,
just
that's
never seen
fun.
one
Yeah.
franchise just consistently fuck up the quarterback position. It's just
Just
insane.
repeatedly over
Yeah.
and over and over.
Yeah. They're the
Oh man.
anti-Packers.
Yeah, yeah, it's incredible. So yeah, huge L. Hold the L. Here you go, Chicago. You guys are gonna suck next year.
And they still
Y-
might not be the worst team in the division because our
oh no,
next team
Detroit's
coming
gonna be
up.
the worst team in the division, but
Yeah.
they're gonna be right, right in front of them.
Yeah. So the next team, your boy, Jared Goff, playing for the Detroit
I've
Lions.
been bitching for like 2 seasons now about how tired I am of watching him play football every Sunday, and I am free. I am free. Sorry,
Um,
Detroit.
and
Sucks to
so,
suck.
yes. So obviously the big move, they acquired Jared Goff, the, 2 first-round picks and third-round pick, all that kind of stuff. We went over that one before in a
You can
previous
have it.
episode, so we won't go too far into that. But, they did make some interesting signings. I think obviously extending Aquara was a big deal for them. Acquiring
Yeah,
Michael
that was a great
Brockers
deal.
was a really good deal, I think. I know that one kind of hurts you as well.
Yeah, yeah. Michael Brockers is one of the last St. Louis Rams still on the roster, man, and has been, he's been playing next to Aaron Donald for the majority of his career, so he's been really overshadowed and very underrated. To where, if you're like most casual NFL fans, if you say the name Michael Brockers, it's not gonna, it's not gonna excite too many people. But he's been an incredible player. The fact that the Lions were able to get him for a seventh round pick, he's just even take away what he does on the field, off the field, and in the locker room, he's worth just throwing a seventh round pick at, and then you get the talent that comes with it. And I mean, that was a slam dunk for them. It sucks. That was the one real cap casualty the Rams had. The Rams don't make that trade if they don't need to clear the cap space that comes from it. That's the only thing that they got from that. It certainly wasn't the pick. Um, so it's unfortunate. But yeah, Detroit's gonna love him. He's such a great player, man.
Yeah. And then, some interesting moves as well. The Tyrell Williams 1 year, $4 million range. If he stays healthy, I think that's an interesting move.
I'm not sure what paints a better bridge quarterback picture than signing Brashad Perriman and Tyrell Williams to 1 year deals. Like if you were ever just even somewhat curious if Detroit truly meant what they said about, like, or if the rumors about Goff being a bridge quarterback, I think this type of signing of just like, hey, we got to have somebody for him to throw to. So here's a couple 1 year deals for these guys because we got
and
nobody in our wide receiver depth
and with
chart
them,
right now.
and with them letting obviously they let Galladay go to New York and then signing Tyrell Williams, my TJ Hawkinson stock just
Still through the roof.
yeah, it keeps going up and up because that's the only guy that Jared Goff might possibly be
Yeah.
able to target.
I think
Um,
this is a good landing spot for a top receiver in the draft. Assuming that a quarterback they don't like doesn't fall to him or whatever. Because I mean, Goff said he was happy to be with somewhere where he was wanted, but there's been reports that they're still like in the quarterback lurking area to where that like, Detroit might be a team to surprise some people and grab a quarterback early.
yeah,
But if they don't do that right, I think that they're a prime landing spot for one of these top receivers to try to give whoever their quarterback of the future is some weapons. So, well, we'll see how that shake out. But yeah, TJ Hawkinson remains supreme.
yeah, and then another interesting signing for whatever reason. Jamal Williams. They signed Jamal Williams away from Green Bay because, I mean, basically, if you took Jamal Williams and then added really elite talent level to Jamal Williams, you would have DeAndre Swift. So,
Jamal
whatever.
Williams was probably like my favorite running back in this free agent class, to be honest. I mean, once Aaron Jones was signed
Yeah.
prior to free agency starting. So once that happened, he's good at everything, man. I mean, he's not going to be running back one, like handle everything and things like that, but he can run the ball. He can catch the ball. He can pass block. Like he's just a really good football player. And he fits Dan Campbell to the T with like the hard nose, just like gonna go hard. We're gonna outmuscle our opponents. Like Jamal Williams is that type of running back where he's just gonna outwork a lot of people that are out there. And I really like him as a player. That was one of my favorite free agent deals so
As a
far
DeAndre
up to this
Swift
point.
owner, I was not a huge fan of it.
Yeah, from a fantasy perspective, I could definitely see that. Yeah, for
But I
sure.
mean, I don't really think it's going to affect too much. I mean, obviously, it hasn't affected Aaron Jones, too much the last few years. So,
Yeah, well,
um,
their offense had a lot more scoring potential too, but I think it'll affect Swift a little bit. But Swift is still the guy there.
yeah. So, which speaking of Aaron Jones, that brings us into our next team, the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, they're kind of notoriously quiet
Yeah, you can wake me up
for
whenever you get
free
done talking
agency.
about him.
Yeah. You know, Aaron Jones, 4 year, $48 million. Um, you know how we are on this podcast.
Hashtag never pay running back.
Yeah, never pay running backs. But I mean, he is a really good running back. I can
He's a
understand them
great
wanting to
player.
keep it,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just you know, anytime that you can draft his replacement in the second round and then turn around the next year and give him $50 million, you got to you got to do it.
Yeah.
So
Everybody knows whenever you can find the heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers, whenever Rodgers still has, an MVP season plus some in front of him,
yeah, you got to
you
do it.
got to do it.
You got to do it. Uh,
Yeah.
and then there are
Yeah.
other two big deals. They re-signed Mercedes Lewis, and then they continued to get
Burnt
burnt.
toast is coming
Yeah,
back to get even more burnt.
that's what I was gonna say. I was like, they really like the taste of
Yeah.
burnt toast because they
Kevin
re-signed
King
Kevin
is back
King,
to get
who
torched
almost
again.
single-handedly lost them a playoff game this last year. So this,
Clearly, they think it was the defensive coordinator and not Kevin King, since they brought King back and fired the D coordinator. I don't. That's a bold strategy, Cotton.
yeah,
I don't know.
anytime you could fire a guy that ran a top 10 scoring defense and then
The Packers need
re-sign,
to thank their lucky fucking stars that
they
they're in
have
a
Aaron
division with the
Rodgers,
Bears and
the
the
Lions.
Lions, and they've got Aaron Rodgers on their team. Because
Yeah,
if you rip A. Rod off that team,
they're winning 5 games.
Minnesota's running away with this division.
Yeah,
Oh my god,
and
the Packers are so annoying. I can't imagine being a Packers fan and watching them how they've done Rodgers. I'd be so pissed.
my
I
mom
am
gets
kind of
angry
pissed. I'm
constantly.
not a Packers fan or a Rodgers fan, and I'm kind of pissed.
My mom gets so mad whenever like I bring any of it up. Um, she she's not a big fan of the Kevin King signing of recently, and she was so mad.
Yeah. I mean, anybody that
Um,
watched the playoff game, I can't blame them for feeling that way.
but but yeah, I'm really interested to see um kind of how they attack that running back spot again in the first round of the draft this year. Um I don't know what they're gonna fucking do. I don't know what
Najee
they're gonna do with
Harris.
that first round pick. They'll probably trade out of the first round altogether, honestly, but I can pretty much guarantee you that it's not gonna help Aaron Rodgers at all. Because
Yeah,
for whatever
like
reason they refuse to do
yeah,
that.
Jamar Chase will fall to whatever they are in the back of the first round, and they'll fucking like I mean,
Mac Jones, let's trade up for Mac Jones.
Najee Harris would be a really nice compliment to Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon.
Yeah, oh, God, so frustrating. And then that'll kind of bring us to our last team in that division, the Minnesota Vikings. I think, they do have a very strong roster. We'll see what kind of happens because I know they've kind of let Daniil Hunter uh, explore trade options as well. So,
Yeah, it's gonna be
according to
big
a
if they lose
report.
him.
So we'll see what happens with that. But, re-signed Amir Abdullah. Not really any huge deals. Dalvin Tomlinson, I think, was a really good deal for them. You know, and obviously the Patrick Peterson deal, him moving from Arizona over, but he's really just the
Yeah,
last
we'll
3
see how that
years.
goes. He
Yeah,
hasn't looked good.
he's just continuously kind of decreased his production the last 3 years. So we'll
I
see.
think I
I
think
think
Dalvin Tomlinson is definitely the headliner here for them up to this point.
yeah, and then
I think
I
that's a
mean
good deal.
I think Anthony Harris, man, I think losing him, that's a big hit to that secondary.
Yeah, and I mean they
Um,
lost one of their offensive tackles too, right? They had to cut him for cap reasons.
yeah, Riley Reef, their starting
Reef,
left
yeah,
tackle, yeah, who
yeah.
signed with the Bengals.
And I mean they rely heavily on feeding Dalvin and and letting kind of the play action and things come to Kirk through that way. And I mean I don't think I don't have the numbers in front of me. I have nothing. I don't like doing this either. I don't like making a statement without some type of stat to back me up. But I know if I was relying on Kirk Cousins as my quarterback and thinking that he was probably going to be dealing with a lot of pressure on a regular basis, I wouldn't feel good about that. I don't know what
Yeah,
his numbers are like against the blitz or anything like that. I haven't looked at that. I know it's out there, and I should have done that prior to. But
right.
uh,
But I
but
mean,
I mean,
any cornerback or any quarterback, that has to continuously face pressure. I mean, you're
yeah,
not
it's
going to
not going
look
to work
good.
out well for the
So,
most part. Yeah.
um, so yeah, that just kind of wraps up kind of a very quiet division, outside of a couple of really bad signings. Um, but other than that, we'll move on here to the NFC South. We start with the Atlanta Falcons. Uh, Obviously the big acquisition for them, I believe, is going to be Mike Davis to take over for Todd Gurley, who I believe is he a free agent? Todd Gurley.
Todd Gurley is a free agent. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Mike Davis by himself. I do think that they're. I
I
mean, they're
think
not
they
going to
might
take a running
draft a
back.
guy.
Yeah, they're not going to take a running back 4 overall, but if like one, or I think it's 4 where they're picking. But if one of the top 3 running backs makes it to the early second, I think that they're a prime landing spot for a running back in the draft. Just because, like, I mean, we'll see if Arthur Smith coming in as a head coach for the Falcons. Obviously, he was the offensive coordinator for the Titans, and clearly they relied on the run because they had Derrick Henry on the team. So we'll see if that was more Arthur Smith, just catering to what he had, or if that's the offense he prefers to run and he wants to have, a running back like that. And obviously, you're not going to find Derrick Henry in this draft, but there are very strong running backs that they could take at the top of the second potentially if they fall to them. So I don't know. I don't know what Arthur
Yeah,
Smith is thinking,
but
but
I
I
mean,
think
at the
that they
same
could
time,
be a landing
like
spot.
eventually they're going to have to draft defense because they've put so many resources into the offensive side of that ball,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
it hasn't worked out. So
Yeah,
on the
their
defensive
secondary needs a
side,
lot of work, and
yeah,
secondary and pass rush are all hurting. So
yeah,
I like the Eric Harris signing, but for the most part,
yeah.
pretty
And I actually like
pretty
Fabian
quiet.
Moreau too. I think he's a decent veteran guy as well. And then they required Lee Smith. They traded for him from
Right
Buffalo, and
from Buffalo. Yeah.
he's a very road grader, big run blocking tight end type of a guy.
Yeah, so something
So
that's interesting to me, I think, the fact that, Lee Smith, the role that he plays, and then the fact that Hayden Hurst wasn't really a huge hit after they acquired him whenever he was a free agent from Baltimore, or did they trade for him? They just one of the, either he was a free agent or they grabbed him from
they
Baltimore, but
traded him
they did.
yeah, they traded
Um,
him.
I do think with them pushing back some of Matt Ryan's deal, making it look like that Matt Ryan's going to be there for a couple more years, I think that this could be a prime Kyle Pitts landing spot
I
too.
was gonna
Now
say,
with
can you imagine Kyle
and
Pitts?
I mean, I know they got to invest in the defense eventually, but man, an offense led by Matt Ryan that has Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts, and man, that would be a lot. And then if Arthur Smith sees the success he saw as a play caller in Tennessee, that offense could be so much fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And as a Mike Davis owner, I would recommend you start Mike Davis. You should. Yeah, I mean,
He's not a bad running back, man. He's
no, I
not
mean,
bad at all.
he literally replaced Christian McCaffrey last year. Like,
Not completely to the
not
extent,
complete,
but he did a fine
but
job though.
I mean,
He did a fine job.
dude was like a top 5 running back, like in
Fantasy
fantasy
wise,
football.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's kind of touchdown dependent for a little bit, but no, he's a good running back. Yeah, he's a good player.
yeah.
And
So we'll see what happens. And then we have a team here, the Carolina Panthers, who we both kind of agree are in that quarterback market. So we'll see what happens there. Lost Curtis Samuel, but they haven't really done too much. I know they've definitely tried to address their offensive line, but
I don't think they've done a good job of it either.
yeah,
They've tried,
I was gonna
but
say,
I'm
I
not a
don't,
fan, man. I don't
no,
know.
not a big Cam Irving fan.
No.
I don't like the franchise tag on the offensive tackle that they franchise tagged for whatever reason. Um, I think
I don't think Pat Eflin is a great upgrade either. Like
no, I think you could
they've
get
signed, they've given offensive linemen money. And I mean, I'm not a world class offensive line, analyst by any means, but just the guys that they've given money to, like I thought that there were better guys out there to throw that money at.
definitely. I mean, I think
So
there's
it's been
better
kind of
guys
question.
in the draft as well. I mean, this is a very deep
Oh,
offensive
definitely.
tackle
Yeah.
class. Now, the one signing that I loved and probably one of my favorite signings of this whole offseason is the Hassan Reddick signing.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, their
Yeah,
defensive signings haven't been bad at all.
no, and
I think Morgan Fox is a good signing. Denzel
I agree.
Perryman is fine. And Hassan Reddick, that I mean,
Especially if they
it's
deploy
max
him as a
value of $8 million.
yeah,
The max he can make is 8 million, even if he hits all of incentives. That's incredible.
yeah, and it kind of burned me that the Colts weren't in on a deal like that with Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, he would
Considering
have
how
been a
much we
great
need
fit.
pass rush,
Hmm.
I think that would have been right up their alley. But I love that signing for them. But outside of that, some questionable moves. We'll see how
Yeah,
the draft plays out.
essentially Carolina for me was I didn't like what they did on offense, but I liked what they did on defense.
Yeah,
So
it's a very very young roster as well. I know they're kind of
this
counting
team's
us.
irrelevant until they get a quarterback. Like we're
Yeah,
not talking about them competing for anything until they get a different quarterback. Teddy B's not the answer.
no. So then we'll get into the New Orleans Saints. Obviously re-signing Jameis Winston, your boy, to kind of Drew Brees
Football is
retiring.
better whenever Jameis Winston is starting.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun for sure.
Yeah.
Because especially the way Drew Brees looked last year, he just looked shot. So I think Jameis can come in and be a fantastic backup to quarterback one Taysom Hill. Uh,
I hope that is when it ends up happening. I
yeah,
truly do.
sign the extension for 140 million dollars. Taysom
Yeah.
Hill.
Yeah. Even though none of it matters, and the New Orleans
No,
Saints are just out
yeah,
here showing you that the salary cap is just a figment of your imagination and
yeah,
it doesn't actually exist. But also the fact that they franchise tag Marcus Williams somehow. They signed PJ Williams, all while having like they were like negative 30 in the hole. The
yeah,
Saints and the Rams are truly showing you that the salary cap is purely a figment of your
yeah. And
imagination and it
speaking
actually
of
does not exist.
yeah, so there's not really too much that the Saints did, other than just bring some guys back. And
Jameis
speaking
is
of bringing
quarterback
some guys
one and
back
Marcus Williams.
and showing you that the salary cap is also a myth, your reigning Super Bowl champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Bravo, Tampa.
Yeah,
Bravo.
yeah, really good offseason for them. They literally brought
Yeah.
everybody back except Antonio Brown so far.
And they
Um,
might bring him back still.
yeah, and they could very easily bring him back. I think the Shaquille Barrett signing, 4 years, 68 million with only
And
36
the way
guaranteed.
they did the
That's
deals with
such
like
a steal.
all other than Godwin, who's on the franchise tag, all of these guys are on deals. Like I think the first year of Barrett's deal is like 5 million. The first year of Levante
Yeah,
David's deal is like 5 million. Like these guys, it was really cool to see these guys still get pay other than Godwin, who's on the franchise tag, but these guys still got contracts and got paid, but they made, the early on sacrifice of taking less money to keep the band together. And they got Sue back, Barrett, David, Godwin, Gronk. Like this team is, I mean, like outside of Antonio Brown, as far as like the top producers go, this team is ready to make another run at it, man. And it
yeah.
just,
I think they should honestly be, as of right now, they should probably be considered the favorite in the NFC.
yeah, why not? I mean, they won last year and they've got the whole band back. Why would I mean, yeah, I don't see how they're not the favorites right now,
Yeah. So,
especially with the underwhelming offseason that the Packers have had up to this point. Like that, that was That would have been 1B, I would think, to the Tampa Bay 1A, before the
Yeah, well,
offseason
no,
started.
I would put the Rams right there with them as well. I think the Rams are right there
I'm
at
not mad about that.
yeah. I think it's kind of 1A, 1B with Tampa and the Rams, and then I'd put the
I
Packers.
mean, I agree with that now, after we've seen what's taken place. But like,
Right.
before the offseason started, um, before the Stafford trade, before any of that, like, just as soon as the Super Bowl was over, you would have thought, it was like the Packers right there neck and neck with Tampa. And, they just need like this one strong offseason to put them over the hump. And that your time with Rodgers is coming to an end soon. And it just like there's no sense of urgency from Green Bay for me. Like I don't feel it at all.
No,
And it,
but I mean, that's I almost agree because the Colts kind of operate the same way. Like the Colts, like they don't operate in a very desperate way. And I think successful franchises don't operate desperately,
well, I mean,
but
the
you
the
do have
Colts
a window. You
have.
want to maximize that window.
Yeah, it's not very often you get like a top five quarterback of all time on your team. Like you absolutely should be desperate to do whatever you can do to win as many Super Bowls as you can while you have a top five all time quarterback on your roster. And there's a big difference between going in with all in with Carson Wentz and going all in with Aaron Rodgers. As much as I love Wentz,
He-
there's a difference in that. I don't understand the Packers' complacency. I don't get it. I really don't. If there was ever a team that should be going all in with how close they've been, it should be them. It makes no sense to me. I would be so irritated if I was a Packers fan the last 2 years.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll see what happens with the draft. So we'll move on here to your favorite division,
The NFC
the NFC
best.
West, the fucking NFC West. And we'll start off with the Arizona retirement. I mean Cardinals. My bad. Um, they've basically, you know, and really like this isn't just this year. This goes back many years with the Emmett Smith signing, the sign, sightings like that. People love to retire in Arizona. So we can look here at some of the guys they've signed.
Look,
AJ Green.
and we can make the retirement jokes, but they've made some really good signings too, though. They really have
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Marcus Golding signing, the 2 years, 9 million for Marcus Golden. That's great value. I
yeah,
do
that's
still
a good value.
they overpaid a little bit for JJ Watt, but I mean having JJ Watt on the team is going to be helpful for them, assuming he can stay healthy. The Rodney Hudson trade from Las Vegas, I mean that offensive line was a problem, and they're going out and trying to um, trying to address that. And the fact that they've got Kelvin Beachum for 2 years, 4 million, I think is great value too. So I mean, there is some fun to be had in terms of like the, retirement home and things like that. But I do think quietly the big names, the people that aren't the big names of old that are making the headlines, even though they shouldn't, I think some of the other trades and signings they made have been really good too, to where I think they're a much better team this year than they were last year up to this point already.
Yeah, and just from even the growth of some of the younger guys on that roster, but they signed Malcolm Butler and Robert Alford. That secondary still has a lot of questions.
Yeah, they still got a
Um,
lot of work to do in the secondary.
and then the linebacker room, we'll see. Obviously they lost Hassan Reddick, but they got
Isaiah
J.J.
Simmons
Watt.
needs to take a step up this year for sure.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, there's a lot of old dudes that they're depending on to play big roles.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we will see. Then we will get here to the San Francisco 49ers. Not really a bunch of massive, bringing different guys in, but the guys they kept got massive deals. Namely Trent Williams, who is now the highest paid offensive tackle in the league by $10,000, with a 6-year, $138 million deal. Um, good on him. It's technically almost kind of like a 3-year deal and then a 3-year deal. Um, so we'll kind of see how it ends up working out. Obviously, big deals like that rarely ever end up being the full length of the deal. But I think that was a
I'm
big sign.
so happy that they did it too. I'm so happy. I mean, Trent Williams is an incredible
Yeah, I
player,
was gonna
but
say. I mean, I don't know why. Like Trent
he
Williams is
it,
one
well
of the best
he's
offensive
also,
tackles.
yeah, but he's also like what,
32.
32, about to be 33, right? And I mean, when was the last time he played 16 games?
Yeah, I think he
Like
played
you have
last
to
year.
go back. No, no,
Did he not play
you have
last?
to, I don't think he played 16 last year. No, I think you got to go back quite a few years. And so I mean, he's an incredible, best tackle and elite type of player whenever he is out there. Um, but they gave him a whole lot of money, and I don't see that working out in their favor in the long run. But I mean, whenever he is out there, he's gonna, he's a game changer. But I like the Niners to be cash strapped,
Yeah,
as a
and
Rams fan, obviously. So
yeah. Speaking of offensive line as well, they signed Alex Mack, who's
I thought that was a great
routinely been one
signing.
of the best centers, in the
He's
league.
really familiar with Kyle Shanahan too.
Yep, yep, very good signing for them as well.
Yeah,
Obviously,
that
they
one
got
was really good.
Juice Check back. I think that's a big part of their offense there. Uh, and then let's just hit on, you know,
I think Jason Verrett was the best like quality
mm,
signing for them. Honestly, I mean their cornerback room was going to be pretty decimated if they didn't bring guys back. They got Emmanuel Mosley in there. They got Quan Williams, who I do think Quan Williams is somewhat underrated as well. I think they did a good job. I mean, they didn't bring Sherman back, who was like the big name from the
yeah,
missing pieces of their secondary, but um, if Jason Verrett can stay healthy, I think that he'll more than deliver on his contract. So I think they did a good job with the secondary. I mean, overall, I mean, I'm obviously, as a Rams fan, I'm hoping and praying the Trent Williams deal doesn't work out. But if that does work out, I think the rest of this offseason is great for them for what they did with
yeah.
their
And if
cornerback
they can just
room and
get
their
healthy,
offensive
that's
line.
just a team that needs to be healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo isn't good enough to get it done, but Kyle Shanahan and the pieces around Garoppolo are good enough to disguise that to an extent to where, this is one of those, there's a handful of teams in the league that are quarterback away. And San Francisco is one of them, to where if they got a legit quarterback, they would be in a scary position to dominate the league, I think,
yeah, and they're another team
which
that
sucks.
might be on that trade up list in the draft as well. To maybe they go and get a guy like Fields or your boy Trey Lance. I know you would not be excited about that.
No, that would break my heart.
No. So let's get into the Seattle Seahawks. Um, big signing, Chris Carson, bringing him back.
Yeah.
Uh, I love Chris Carson, but I mean,
It was a good sign. I mean, 2 years that you basically like, 7.5 million a year. I mean, he's, as much as they depend on the running game in their offense and they just refuse to, not run the ball a shit ton. Chris Carson is a good player, man. So I mean, the main thing I was proud of him for was, well, not, I mean, I wish they wouldn't have, but like just from the fact that they went out and got Gabe Jackson and tried to improve their offensive line.
yeah,
I thought that was a huge win for
that
them. And
was
the
a good
fact that
move for
they
them.
they only had to give up a 5th-round pick, I thought that was great value to get him in. The fact that they were able to cut Carlos Dunlap and still bring him back. They got him 2 years, 16.6 million. That was pretty recent.
Yeah. And
That was great value for them,
yeah,
man.
and they ended
Carlos
up
Dunlap still has
releasing
a lot
Quentin
left.
Jefferson. They released Quentin Jefferson, which I thought was going to be a big loss, but then they go and bring in a guy like Kerry Hyder, who I think was a great value signing as well for them, that could possibly replace that role. Had 8 sacks last year for the 49ers, kind of playing that similar role to Quentin Jefferson. Still a young type of guy who's, might just be hitting his prime. So we'll see about that.
Yeah,
Gerald
Gerald
Everett.
Everett.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, Gerald Everett, that could be very interesting as well.
I think he's a great fit for that offense, man, and that sucks.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think Russ,
I
Russ
don't
was
know.
frustrated.
How
I
is
think
his
Russ
is
should
his
be
run
happy.
blocking really, really good? Is he a good run blocker?
No, he's a great fit for, Pat, a team that would realize that, they need to pass the ball and let Russell Wilson, control the game a little bit more. I think that there was, last year you saw like two extremes. You saw him, like let Russ cook to the extreme to where, it was just like out of control. And then you saw once Chris Carson and guys got healthy toward the end of the year, you saw them go back to the run game. I think that right somewhere in the middle right there is like the perfect mix. And if Gerald Everett can get involved in the passing game, and if they can get that run pass mix right, I think they've had a good offseason. Which sucks to say, but I've kind of just come to expect this from the NFC West.
NFC
So
West, man, like it's very rare that the NFC West makes terrible moves. As far as like the type of moves like the Giants or the Cowboys or the
very
Texans.
unfortunate. Yeah.
So, and then that will bring us to our last team, your team, the Los Angeles Rams. Um, Obviously, the big name there is the Matthew Stafford trade, which we have hit on, numerous times as well. So I don't know, I'm sure you're going to want to talk about him a little bit, but um, on the flip side of that, one of the worst signings, my worst signings. I know obviously you're going to defend it being a Rams fan, but I didn't like the amount of money they gave to Leonard Floyd. I know his production and I know Aaron Donald's there and possibly they can keep that kind of production, but I thought they were a prime landing spot, kind of like you've alluded to in the past, where maybe they put that money towards somewhere else and they bring in some of these guys on cheaper 1-year deals that end up having that same type of impact that Leonard Floyd does at a fraction of the cost of what they ended up paying him. Not a huge fan of the contract, like the player to a certain extent. I mean, I don't think he's a world beater, but when we see some of these other pass rushing contracts that got handed out, and then you look at that one and you're just like, well, it kind of is what it is. We'll see kind of how it breaks down because it's only 32 million guaranteed. So it's not a huge amount of guaranteed money. I think they can get out of most of the contract after a couple of years. Um,
which is
but
one of the reasons why I disagree with you on it being one of like, you said it was one of your least favorite signings. What you just said is one of the reasons why I don't have much of a problem with it. It is, I mean, most of the guaranteed money does come in the first 2 years, which is thankfully after this past offseason that we're going through right now, all of the Goff and Gurley and Cook's dead money, all that is going to be gone after this offseason is finished up. So they do have cap space to work with in the
plus the
near
cap is
future.
going to rise as well.
Right. Stafford, there's been talks that possibly Stafford gets extended 1, maybe 2 years to give them some more cap relief. But as of right now, they've got Stafford for 2 years. This Leonard Floyd contract is basically a 2-year contract. They can get out of it after 2 years if they want to. So it's clear that they see their Super Bowl window and they're going for it. And while they could probably find people on veteran deals for cheap to come in next to Aaron Donald and get them some sacks and get them some pass rush numbers. I don't think you can find the combination of what Leonard Floyd showed, both from pass rushing and from setting the edge and from playing the run that he showed this year. I don't think that that's out there on the market for cheap. And the pass rushing could be there, but the complete player that you saw him come into last year, where a lot of people like Leonard Floyd, kind of, I mean, like Khalil Mack is not Aaron Donald, but he's not far off the list from players, that you would say are the top defensive players in the league. And it's not like Leonard Floyd was playing against scrubs before he came to LA. Like, whenever he was left for dead in Chicago, he was playing next to a dominant player like he was in LA. And you saw a clear improvement just of the player. From and I some people want to credit that to Brandon Staley and the job he did as the Rams defensive coordinator for the 1 year he was the defensive coordinator last year, but this wasn't his first time playing alongside elite defensive players, but it was his first time performing at this level. And I think that was kind of just the full package that the Rams got from him last year is what made them comfortable with signing this deal, to the point like they were trying to get this done before free agency even broke. It just didn't end up happening that way. This was a guy where they had like Dante Fowler Jr., they grabbed him from the Jaguars prior to last year, and he had almost the same pass rushing numbers that Floyd had, and they let him walk without hesitation. He signed a nice deal with Atlanta, but he didn't have the all around impact that Leonard Floyd had, to where, if you just look at the numbers, it's easy to just say, well, I mean, he was playing next to Aaron Donald. But if you really sit down and go watch Leonard Floyd play, he put together such an incredibly complete year in all facets of the defensive game, to where I have no problem with them. Now, if I could have had the choice between Leonard Floyd or John Johnson, I would have chose John Johnson. But for whatever reason, they chose not to go that route. So I have no problem with them. The edge would be a humongous need on this roster if they didn't make this move. And for me, one thing that I've appreciated of Les Snead is, and one thing that I've always agreed with is, I think free agency is the place to fill needs, and the draft is the place to acquire talent, and just to take who you think the best players are. Like, I don't think you should be trying to plug needs for right now in the draft, because there's a very small handful of rookies that really, really produce their rookie year. And Snead is kind of prepared for that with the loss of John Johnson. They've been targeting safeties in the draft heavy for the last couple of years, and I think they kind of anticipated not being able to re-sign him. And they've got guys that are ready to step in and do that. And at the edge position, if they let Floyd walk, there wasn't much going on there. And I mean, they could have, signed a guy for cheap, but I really, whenever I first saw the contract, I didn't like it at all. Whenever I saw the details of it, now I'm more than fine with what they did. And the fact that they brought Deshaun Jackson in, the fun
I do like
the fun for that connects itself. Yeah, I mean, with Stafford's arm and his arm ability, if Jackson can find some way to stay healthy, I mean, that's the big question. He's in his mid-30s, but he can still run just as good as anybody in the league. It's just a matter of staying healthy. If he stays healthy, that can just be you've got Kupp and Woods that are great after the catch, and they're great possession receivers that can make something happen after you get the ball in their hands, but they're not going to stretch you deep. And that was kind of the hope for Josh Reynolds last year, and he didn't really do much of that. He's gone now. And that Van Jefferson is a very similar receiver to Kupp and Woods. He's got the same type of skill set, but Deshaun Jackson brings that extra element of, they looked at, there was a report that the Rams looked at John Ross before he signed with the Giants. And so it's kind of, the same story there with John Ross and with Deshaun Jackson. So, they weren't going to do a lot. I mean, they were second least in terms of cap whenever free agency started, before they started making all their cuts. The Saints were people that had less, that were more in the hole. So it wasn't ever going to be a huge offseason, but just the improvement they made at quarterback, and then keeping some of the defensive line intact, man, I'm more than satisfied with the offseason up to this point.
I mean, we'll kind of see how the defense plays out with the loss.
John Johnson and Troy Hill are going to be big losses, though.
So we'll kind of see, but it's almost kind of like they're just trying to say, like, what, let's just run it back with Stafford instead of Goff. And
they believe in the quarterback upgrade is what it comes down to.
We'll see. So that pretty much just covers our NFC free agency. Not a ton of huge moves as far as the market has gone. But before we do leave, we do want to touch on a few things. Obviously, I want to touch on the Colts bringing T.Y. Hilton back. My boy's returning one more year, $10 million, $8 million guaranteed. I really don't even give a shit about the money. Just paying what he wants. I don't want to see him in another uniform. So super excited to see him back. Just another weapon, I think. And I think this year T.Y. can really kind of get back to form as far as like he was with Luck, because the last couple of years he's played with quarterbacks who are very reluctant or aren't really able to throw the ball deep and take full advantage of his skill set. And I think Wentz and him it's a very good fit on paper. So we'll see how it works out. But love T.Y. I know Colts Nation got hashtag bring T.Y. home trending for 24 hours, one of the top 10 trending topics in the world for 24 hours. So
good for you guys.
Yeah, shout out to Colts Nation, because T.Y. even stated today that was one of the main reasons he came back, is because he apparently turned down a huge deal for multiple years with the Ravens. He said on Pat McAfee today, he actually said, I would have made more money with my signing bonus than I did on the full contract, to go with the Ravens. But I mean, anytime that you can come back home and you can avoid playing with a running back at your quarterback position, you just want to go ahead, you know, come back to a real quarterback and a real franchise. Um, I'm just kidding. I'm just fucking with the Ravens. But because it seems like no wide receiver wants to go there at all. They can't get a wide receiver. They offer wide receivers all this money, and all of them are just like, nope. So we'll see. They're probably going to have to attack that position in the draft. Um, but yeah, I'm over the moon. That's the one signing that I didn't care how much it cost. I didn't care what the impact was. I just wanted Ty back. And so I'm glad. And then if he hits, I think he's only like 600 something yards away from hitting 10,000 yards. And if he does do that, the Indianapolis Colts will be the first franchise that have 3 separate receivers hit 10,000 yards total with one team. So definitely looking forward to that record being broken this year. And then outside of that, we do have something special coming up tomorrow. I'm gonna go ahead and let you hit it real quick.
Yeah. So tomorrow we have we've got a 10-team head-to-head points league for fantasy baseball, and our draft is tomorrow night. So we're Landon and myself, along with a few other people possibly from the league, are gonna hop on here and do the draft live and be able to post that on our YouTube channel. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. So to kind of put a bow on the fantasy or on the free agent discussion, top 2 or top 3, and then like who would you say like are your like 3 biggest winners and your 3 biggest losers, AFC and NFC, for free agency up to this
All
point?
right. So wrap it up. I think obviously my clear winner of free agency so far has been the Cleveland Browns. Really like what they've done. I would put the Jets up there as well. I really like what the Jets
Yeah.
have done. And let me think. I don't really, because outside of that, there hasn't really been too much movement as far. I think Tampa Bay, definitely
Yeah.
you'd
They
be
would definitely
considered
be
a
in
winner.
mine as well. Yeah.
So I would say Cleveland, the Jets, Tampa Bay are the big winners. I think the big losers, I think you got to put Green Bay up there. I think they had a position, like you said, to kind of maximize their window this year and next year, and they just,
Yep.
they didn't do it. But that's been their philosophy for years. If you follow that team, whether it works or not,
Yeah,
it
that's
is what
true.
it is. Um, you know, but I would consider them a loser. Um, and I'm gonna get hate on this, but I really don't like what the Titans did. Um, I
I
think
think that's fair. Yeah.
I think they overpaid Bud Dupree, um, and then obviously with them cutting their secondary and then bringing in all those guys in free agency that are, basically the same, if not worse, than the guys they cut. I'm not a huge fan of that at all. And then my other big loser would be the fantasy football community. That's the
Yeah.
biggest loser of all in free agency.
It's pretty brutal. Yeah. Yeah. So my winners are very similar. I would have Cleveland would be number 1 for me. I would say Washington would probably be number 2. And 3 is tough. I think there's a lot of teams that you can talk about. I really like Cleveland. I really like Washington. Um, I think that I think that Denver deserves to be talked about with the improvement that they made to their secondary. I think that what they did was incredible. I think that they should be there at the Jets. That what you talked about having the Jets in your top 3. I think that they should be in there as well for the conversation. So I mean, picking a third team is difficult. But yeah, I mean, for like if I had to pick a top 3, it would probably be Cleveland, Washington, and then Tampa. Just bringing everything back, and then I would have the Jets right there on the outside, and then 3 losers for me. The Raiders, the
Oh,
Bears, and probably the Packers, I would say, would probably be my three biggest losers. The Raiders just decimating their offensive line, turning one of their biggest, if not their biggest strength into a weakness. Um, it was incredibly sad for me to watch. And then the Bears just continually to
Wilt.
just yeah, like who cares about the quarterback position? And then Green Bay, their roster is still good. I mean, they're going to win their division and and be in contention for a Super Bowl spot. But why are you not trying to do more to make yourself the suit? Why are you not trying to improve that roster while you can? It just, that makes no, like there's teams that have probably had, like there's teams that have much worse rosters than the Packers, but I still, I'm not as upset about their offseason because like I don't expect them to be trying to contend, and I shouldn't be talking about the Packers in that same breath. So yeah, there are other teams that like the Bud Dupree signing you said, some of the Titans signings, put them in that territory. Um, there's some teams that have made some questionable signings, but not questionable enough to where I'm not more upset about the non-signings that the Packers have made. So yeah, that would round it out for me.
Yep. All right, man. Well, obviously we'll hop back on here tomorrow, get ready to draft this fantasy baseball
Yes,
team.
sir. Yeah.
Really excited about that. And outside of that, I'll let you do your little closing thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you have made it all the way through this free agency wrap up for the NFC, up to this point, I hope that means that you liked what you've heard, so that you want to hear more. Be sure to, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast, we're most likely there. Also, if you want to get to watch us talk about this stuff right here on the YouTube, we do have a YouTube channel as well. All of it is the Amateur Experts podcast across the board. If you find us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to hit the little bell that comes up to notify you of whenever new uploads go up. And then if you do like the video, then the next step is to like the video. Likes, comments, all that. It helps us grow. It helps us get to talk with more people. So, if you agree, disagree, whatever, let us know in the comments on YouTube. We're active on that end to respond to you guys. So, any type of engagement is something that we appreciate. So follow us on all the podcast apps and such, and let us know what you think.
Yes, sir. So like you said, thank you if you made it this far. We greatly appreciate it. And we look forward to hearing from some of you guys. Let us know kind of what you would like to hear. Definitely going to get more into baseball. Baseball season 7 days away. Really excited about
Let's
that.
go.
And obviously keep an eye out tomorrow or Saturday, depending on when the video gets posted, for our fantasy baseball draft. And thank you guys so much for listening. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.